if you want a confirmation about how ineffective our foreign policy is and it has been, we go into the war, the Ukrainian war takes place. Immediately, just about every possible sanction that you can put in against the country was imposed. How well is being enforced? If actually, if you want to know how poorly is being enforced, because part of the sanctions is countries that are not supposed to be doing, and that's the idea, right? To squeeze you financially, economically, to the point that you got to go back to a drawing board, you got to go back to the table instead of here and dying. However, what ended up happening out of Russia in the Ukrainian war is that Russia right now, the only thing is doing more business with a lot of the enemies that we already have. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? They're about to do an exchange of weapons for technology with North Korea. They already have a stronger business alliance with Iran. And now we have official confirmation that Russia has replaced Saudi Arabia as China's main oil supplier. So what are we doing? Is Russia at this point is probably making more money than they were before the sanctions, right? That's not going to be. They're not going to be in a weaker. They might be struggling in certain areas, and they are in a war. But I don't see these guys again. I don't see anybody that's look like I'm you bending me down to my knees and I'm ready to negotiate or to come to the negotiating table. How what an incredible. First of all, there's no fear of this administration. There is
Mhm.
zero to this administration, and that just weakens our position in the international community. Like, there's no such a thing as like, man, the United States is pressuring to. They couldn't care less. They're not afraid. What's your take on this, man?
For me, here's the way that I look at it: is recruiting is the answer. Okay, and Vladimir Putin got that very well. He's recruiting aggressively for allies, and it's the whole concept of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so it's a really scary proposition that these guys are getting cozier and cozier and cozier together, just because that makes stronger alliances in the US. Honestly, right now, we don't have the presence that we used to have before in an international level. And you can see it just by the display of these actions that are taking place. But yeah, I mean, freaking Putin, like, it's like recruiting is Rita, right? Recruiting is the answer. We're reading a book by Nick Saban, and I think he's using it as his Bible. And it's all about recruiting and saying, you know what, let me make alliances. Let me make sure that I have the opportunity to strengthen myself. The whole concept of when one door closes, a window will open. He's using very, very strategically. And again, for me, it's a scary proposition because if at the end of the day they wanna, start something bigger, China wants to take over Taiwan and they want to invade it, we will have to get involved there, and not indirectly but directly. And so, by the way, these guys are gonna have each other's back from what it looks like. So it's not a fun or a good proposition. It's not a good outcome for the U.S.
So for me, I feel like this is something we need to pay attention to it. I'm not as concerned right now yet, and the reason why is because I feel like, no, at the end of the day, America is still the number one entity in the world, regardless. And I feel like other countries will try to position themselves to where that won't be the case, moving forward. But then here's the thing that I'm also thinking about. I don't feel like Russia and China are not both themselves competing to be the number one spot. You get what I'm saying? So then, even if it makes sense for them at certain times to like look as if they're cool with certain things, I don't think that doesn't mean is like they don't have an idea for themselves to still be number one. You get what I'm saying? So then at the end of the day, it's not like they're gonna say, all right, well, we're gonna put our aspirations of being the top person on the planet aside so that we can take down America. I don't believe that for a second. So I think everybody at the end of the day is fighting for a position, to where, so 1 second they'll do business with China, but that can change tomorrow, where for whatever reason they'll be like, you know what, no, I'd rather do business with India, or I'd rather do business with another country. So I don't feel like this is a like, oh no, we're like going to be close for forever type of thing. I think at the end of the day, everybody's going to do what makes the most sense for them financially at the time, which is positioning. But I don't see it like as something that's going to be a long-term connection with to where we got to worry about it that much yet.
There is a lot of lessons from history, right? If history has taught us something, is just think about obviously what happened to the Roman Empire, what happened to the British Empire, if you want to use a more recent example, right? The fact of the matter is that you can find yourself making a lot of stupid decisions that can put at jeopardy your ability to leverage the strength of your position against some of the other people. As a matter of fact, listen, make no mistake about it. For Russia, China is more of a threat just by location. You know what I mean? They next door to each other. Something goes wrong, these guys can kill each other in like 2 seconds, and everybody's gone. You know what I mean? But not knowing how to manage the situation, right, and making that many poor choices, and also not knowing how to balance this, and just to see it even from a financial perspective. Listen, one of the things that happened immediately is because the value of the oil supply production coming out of Russia dropped so much. Guess who was one of the biggest major buyers at that very moment? It was actually Saudi Arabia. You're like, what do you mean? They have so much oil. Why would they be buying? Well, why not? If I can buy it at a discount and sell it at the marketplace, I don't even have to touch my own oil reserves. You know what I mean? And my oil, and still make a bigger profit. And so some people are making smarter choices than we are at this very moment. And I don't care who you are. There's only so many stupid choices you can make before you compromise not only your economy, your strength, and your credibility, but strategically speaking, again, you're sending the enemies to become friends. Right? The whole idea of, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And this is what you're seeing playing out right now. More than anything else, is just how inefficient, the lack of effectiveness, the fact that we talk about these sanctions as something that's going to bring somebody to the negotiating table. Guys, I haven't seen, and again, a consistency of a policy, foreign policy is needed. Iran was definitely not in good shape, down to very difficult situation. And by having an administration that loosened up, all the sanctions that were going on, I don't know how they are enforcing sanctions against Russia when you have this type of transactions taking place, And so Iran is wealthier right now than it probably has been in God knows in how many years. Russia doesn't appear to be in any kind of trouble. So what are we doing? And again, there's two components, right? One is financial, and the second one is, we making our position weaker when it comes to the idea that we can do certain things to make a correction that can be a reasonable choice, so that we don't have to use weapons and we don't have to go to war. By being unaffected, by being unable to get these things to work the way they're supposed to, that's actually getting us to a point where going to war and weapons is the only choice. If you don't have the ability to negotiate and get if you're not an effective negotiator and getting the kind of results that you're supposed to get precisely so that we don't go to war, then war becomes the only choice. And so these things, to be quite honest with you, is very unfortunate to see that kind of scenario, but it is what it is.